There is a gap in human history. 295,000 years where people lived, built, believed, and died, and left no written record. We used to call that gap prehistory. We used to call it primitive. We were wrong. This is civilizations before writing.
You know what they love to tell you, that there are 6,000 years of missing history. 6,000 years between Göbekli Tepe, the oldest complex site that we know of, and Sumer, what they call the cradle of civilizations. 6,000 years where apparently nothing happened, except we've been filling that gap on this channel for a while now. Karahan Tepe, Natufians, Ain Ghazal, Katalahuya, Jericho, Ashalik Hoyuka, site after site, all sitting right in front of that supposed void. So now you're thinking, okay, fine, you got us between Göbekli Tepe and Sumer. What about before Göbekli Tepe? What about before all of it? Well, that's why we're here today. 20,000 years ago, in the middle of what is now the Jordanian desert, people were building permanent structures, burying their dead with rituals, trading goods across 270 kilometers before Göbekli Tepe, before Karahan Tepe, before any of it, and almost nobody is talking about it. Not anymore.
70 kilometers east of modern Amman, in a stretch of Jordan so dry today that almost nothing survives, something is buried under the ground. A low mound rises 2 meters above the surrounding desert floor. To an untrained eye, it looks like nothing. To an archaeologist, it is one of the most important places human beings ever gathered. This is Kharaneh IV. But before we go any further, forget what you're looking at now. Forget the desert. Forget the emptiness. 20,000 years ago, this was not a desert. The Azraq Basin was a lush wetland, shallow lakes, rivers, rich grasslands stretching in every direction. Gazelle in numbers that are hard to imagine today. Aurochs, wild cattle the size of a small car, foxes, hares, birds. Fresh water within walking distance, plants and game in every direction. The desert is what this place became. What it was a paradise. And people found it. Kharaneh IV's main occupation, 19,800 to 18,600 years ago, before the Natufians, before Göbekli Tepe, before Jericho, before all of it. The site covers 21,000 square meters, roughly the size of 3 football fields. Archaeologists have recovered an estimated 2 million stone tools from its deposits. 2 million. Alongside those tools, animal bones in quantities that exceed almost every other site of this age in Southwest Asia. Ground stone processing tools, red ochre pigment in dense clumps, worked bone objects, incised stone, and something else. Shells. Over 1,000 pierced marine shells, intentionally drilled so they could be strung as jewelry, worn as pendants, sewn into clothing. Those shells came from 2 places: the Mediterranean Sea, 130 kilometers away, the Red Sea, 270 kilometers away. Someone carried them here, across hundreds of kilometers of Ice Age terrain. Not food, not tools, shells. Objects that only have value if the people carrying them agreed they had value. That is not survival behavior. That is culture. And then there is the mortar. A large basalt mortar, a grinding stone, was found at the site. Basalt does not exist near Kharaneh IV. The nearest basalt fields are 25 kilometers to the east. Someone organized a group, walked 25 kilometers, and carried a heavy stone bowl back. You do not do that alone. You do not do that without planning. You do not do that without a community. In 2012, archaeologists from UC Berkeley published the excavation of 2 hut structures at Kharaneh IV. Brushwood construction, post holes in the ground, floors worn smooth by repeated use. These are the oldest hut structures ever found in this region of the world. But it was what was inside them that stopped the researchers cold. In the first hut, a cache of hundreds of pierced marine shells, clumps of red ochre, and a deliberately burnt pile of gazelle horn cores stacked and left on the floor. Not food waste, not garbage, arranged, intentional, deposited. Near the same hut, 4 fox paws grouped around a single flint core. The fox paws are what remained of a fox skin pouch, the skin long gone, the bones still in position after 20,000 years. Someone made a bag from a fox, put tools inside, and left it there. These are tiny bones, fragile bones. They survived 20,000 years. The second hut told a different story. A pit filled densely with animal bones, and above it, a single isolated human tibia, a leg bone, alone, placed deliberately over the pit. No full burial, no skeleton, just the one bone left there as the hut was abandoned. We cannot say with certainty what it meant. We can say it was not accidental. And then the burial. Inside one of the hut structures, archaeologists found a woman, adult, intentionally placed in a semi-flexed position on the floor of the hut. Then, the hut was burned, deliberately, completely. The shells and the ochre were placed on top of the ash afterward. Objects brought from hundreds of kilometers away left on the remains of the fire that consumed her. Connecting the death of a person with the ritual destruction of the space she died in, this behavior was previously documented only from the Neolithic period, thousands of years later. At Kharaneh IV, it appears 20,000 years ago.
So let's make sure I have this right. 20,000 years ago, in what is now middle of the Jordanian desert, people were building permanent structures, burying their dead with ritual, trading goods across 2,700 kilometers, gathering in numbers big enough to leave 2 million stone tools in the ground. And they teach you in school, in documentaries, in every YouTube video that gets recommended to you that civilization started in Sumer around 3500 BCE. That's 16,000 years after this. 16,000 years of people organized, connected, symbolic, ritualistic people that somehow didn't make it into the story they told you. It's not a conspiracy. I'm not telling you that it's simpler than that. It's a narrative, and a narrative needs a clean beginning. Kharaneh IV doesn't fit the clean beginning. It doesn't get mentioned. Well, not here, not at Hidden Archaeology.
Here is what the researchers found at Kharaneh IV that they did not expect to find. Evidence of food surpluses. Not just hunting for the day, not just surviving, processing and storing food beyond immediate needs. 20,000 years ago, before agriculture, before any of the systems we associate with that kind of organized thinking. Here is the list of behaviors that archaeologists call the Neolithic package. Permanent structures, ritual burial, groundstone tools for processing food, art and symbolic objects, long-distance trade networks, community labor on shared infrastructure. These behaviors are supposed to appear around 10,000 years ago, with the Neolithic Revolution, with the dawn of civilization. Every single one of these behaviors is present at Kharaneh IV, 20,000 years ago. The pathway to what we call civilization was not a revolution. It was not a sudden leap. It was a slow accumulation, thousands of years of people making deliberate choices to come back to the same place, to bury their dead with care, to carry a shell 270 kilometers because it meant something, to move a mortar together because the community needed it. There is no gap. There never was a gap. There was only the story we chose to tell, and the 20,000 years we chose to leave out of it.
This is part 1 out of 3 out of this series that I'm making about people before Göbekli Tepe, basically. I already done multiple episodes on what happened between Göbekli Tepe and ancient Babylon and how there is no gap. And now I'm trying to do the same thing before Göbekli Tepe, showing there is no missing gap. People were living, surviving, multiplying. If you like this type of stuff, please subscribe. And until next time, keep an open mind.